Good morning, Wednesday, March 25th, 2020, COVID-19 Distance Learning, Day 3. Unit 11, 3.A, Odd Solutions. Okay, your job yesterday was to do worksheet 3A. And as I promised, I'll go through and do the odds each day. So, what we talked about yesterday was we could take the square root of negative 36 and break it up into negative 1 times, well, the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 36. We know the square root of negative 1 equals I. Square root of 36 is 6. I'm sorry, not 3. Slow start here, 6I. Alright, the square root of negative 4 is the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. Square root of negative 1 is simply I. Alright, you got a bonus in there, number 2. Alright, so we know the square root of negative 1 is I, so we know we got that going. 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. 2 gets out, a 2 gets killed, the 3 stays in, so this becomes 2 root 3, or 2I root 3. Alright, number 7. Let's just jump right into 8I, right? Negative 1 becomes I, square root of 64 is 8. Over here, again, square root negative 1 times the square root of 27. 27 is 3 times 3 times 3. 1 3 gets out, 1 3 gets killed, 1 3 stays in. So it is 3I root 3. Alright, moving down to number 11. Now we're going to combine some like terms after we distribute that negative. So it becomes 4 minus 2I. Negative 1 times 8 is negative 8. Negative times a negative is a positive 7I. Now we combine like terms. 4 plus negative 8 is negative 4. And negative 2I plus 7I is positive 5I. Alright, number 13. We can really just pretend the parentheses aren't there. But we'll go ahead and rewrite it. Because we're adding, we really just don't even need the parentheses. But again, we'll combine like terms. 3 plus 12 is 15. And I plus negative 13I is negative 12I. Alright, moving on to number 15. 24 minus 13I. Negative 2 times 17 is negative 34. Negative 2 times 8I is negative 16I. Now we're ready to combine the like terms. 24 plus negative 34 is negative 10. And negative 13I plus negative 16I is negative 29I. Okay, now we're moving on to multiplying. So 12 times 4 is 48. And I times I is I squared. And we have to remember that I squared is always equal to negative 1. So this becomes 48 times negative 1, which is just negative 48. Alright, number 19. Well, let's see here. We've got 2 times 5 times 8 times 10. Or 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 8 is 80, and 80 times 10 is 800. Okay, now here's probably the easiest way to look at this. I times I is I squared, and I times I is I squared. So basically what we have is 800 times negative 1 times negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Positive 1 times 800 is just 800. Okay. Now, these boxes were accidentally left in there. We really didn't show you using the box method. Some of you may have learned foiling using the box method. We used foiling method or double distributive property. And I think that's the easiest way to learn it. I'll show you this real quick, just in case you guys are kind of curious, but 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to write that here. 2 times 3i is 6i. Negative 3i times 2i is negative 6i. And negative 3i times 3i is negative 9i. Now look what happens. These middle two terms cross out and we get 4 minus 9i. You guys might recognize that as the difference of two squares. 2 squared minus 3i squared. Oops. Make that true. I got to remember it's I times I, which is I squared. Okay? 2 minus 3i times 2 plus 3i. But we can go a little further here because remember this is 4 minus 9 times negative 1. I squared equals negative 1. So it becomes negative 9 times negative 1, which is positive 9. So 4 plus 9 is 13. Okay, so just to help you understand, this is 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3i is 6i. Negative 3i times 2 is negative 6i. And negative 3i times 3i is negative 9i squared. Then this is your first term, this is your last term, and these two terms combine to give you your middle term. But in this case, they just cross out. Okay, moving on to 23. Fronts, outsides, insides, lasts. And 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4i is 8i. Negative 9i times 3 is negative 27i. And negative 9i times 4i is negative 36i squared. Okay, combining like terms. We got a 6, 8i, and negative 27i is negative 19i. And we have minus 36 times negative 1, right? I squared equals negative 1. So this becomes positive 36. And 36 plus 6 is 42 minus 19i. Okay. 25. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times negative 7i is negative 42i. Negative 8 times 4, negative 8i times 4 is negative 32i. And negative 8i times negative 7i is positive 56i squared. Okay, so we have 24. Negative 42i and negative 32i is negative 74i. And 56 times, remember, negative 1 equals negative 56. So negative 56 plus 24 is what? Negative 32 minus 74i. Okay. And what pattern do you notice in your answers on number 26? Well, we didn't do 26, and I want you guys to actually think about that one. You'll see a pattern. I want to give you guys a chance to do this. But you'll notice a pattern. Okay, it starts to repeat itself eventually. Okay, based on the pattern, and that is 28. Based on the pattern, what do you notice the following? Okay, I'm going to leave that for you guys. Maybe we'll talk about that after tomorrow. But I'd really like to see you guys take a look at that, see if you can figure out that pattern. Shouldn't be too tough after what we did a couple of problems ago. Think about what I did on number, where did I do that? Right here on number 19. Refer back to 19. That might help you a bit. Okay. So that is the review of worksheet 3A. Hope that helped. I went through it quickly. Again, as always, email me if you have any questions that you would like answered. Have a great day.